Welcome back to part 3 of my developer overview on Treasure. Now, I told you from the beginning that I would be taking on a few myths surrounding the company, and this video will be no different. In fact, today I want to talk about the myth of the difference in quality between their original titles and their licensed titles. And our next 2 games that I wanted to look at will do a great job in sort of showing that that's not necessarily the case. And those games are McDonald's Treasureland Adventure and Dynamite Headdy. These are 2 great platformers for the Genesis, and generally speaking, most people sort of make fun of the McDonald's game as you would any McDonald's game, but also most people agree that Dynamite Headdy is a great platformer, a great game for the Genesis, very creative. So let's take a closer look at it. So this game was released in 1994 for both the Genesis and Mega Drive, and it has a rather lengthy intro, but I really like it. It shows some of the gameplay mechanics as well as introducing some of the characters and the enemies with their really hilarious names. So this introductory scene here, the getaway, as far as I know, you can't actually die during this, but it does offer you sort of a nice introduction to the gameplay, the different mechanics. There is an enemy that you can kill, and so it's kind of nice to just sort of get into the game, get used to the nice colorful graphics, and just take a look at everything. Here, as we approach our first boss, we see an aspect of the game that I really like, which is the fact that everything is set up sort of as if it's a play. Now, you may have noticed the curtain rising at the beginning of the first stage, and this happens at every stage. But what I think is cool is this is a game that knows it's a game. It's not trying to be anything real. It's fully aware, and you get to see some of the sort of stagehands moving things and that sort of thing, and I think that adds a nice level of charm to the game. Another thing that's incorporated into this whole stage idea is the health bar, which is actually the spotlight that you see on the upper left side. And it actually turns from green to yellow progressively toward red as you take hits and you're getting closer to death. The next stage is actually a practice area, and in this area you can go into various doors and you actually learn the gameplay mechanics. Now the cool thing is you don't have to do this every time. If you start the game new, you can just skip all the doors and go straight through. But it's kind of cool. You can try out all the different power-ups to your head, and that's the main gameplay mechanic, is that your head actually can detach from your body, and it can be used both as a weapon and as a way to navigate through the stages, pull yourself up to different levels, and that sort of thing. So it's really cool. that they have this in here so you can just try everything out, see how it works, and get a chance to test it in an environment where you're not actually going to die. Now here I want you to take note of the level design and the way that you navigate through everything. Now again, you use your head to attack, but you also use it to traverse up and down the various platforms, which in this case are hung by stage rope, which I think again is a really great addition to the game. There are also various things that you can move around with your head and that sort of thing. So overall, it's very enjoyable, colorful gameplay. And again, just sort of take note of everything because we'll be talking about it again later. Here's a look at one of the power-ups that I think is pretty cool. This one actually allows you to become smaller, and it acts as a way to let you go through this smaller part of the level, which I think is kind of a cool addition to the game, and it allows for multiple pathways and these sorts of things. So I think it's a great addition to an already great game. Now, the boss battles in this game are very goofy looking. Of course, you saw the cat from the opening stage there. Now you have a dog here that's sort of on wheels and everything. But again, everything's very goofy, but it's a lot of fun. You have your little sort of fairy here that will tell you where the target is on each boss, so that you can destroy them quickly. I really like the design of the stage here. The rotating platforms are something you don't really see on the Genesis too often. It's not quite Mode 7, but it's still pretty cool. And there is some gravity effects when the stage turns to its side there. And I will admit it can be a little disorienting at times, but generally, once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to figure out, and it's a very cool addition. Here's another very inventive boss battle. You're kind of attached to this cat here, and you have to not only hit him when you're close enough to be able to, but also you can gather power-ups. You see them floating there, and also you have to sort of avoid other enemies and everything. And it's very cool. It's a lot of fun and very creative. Here's a look at another boss battle, and again the stage is sort of shown, and in most of the boss battles that's where you'll see the stage aspect or the theater aspect of it the most. And again, this one is sort of multi-part. They become a little bit more complex as time goes along. They're all very different from one another, so you kind of have to learn strategies for each boss. This one is in 2 parts here, and again, just very fun. And it's a lot of fun just sort of learning the ins and outs of each boss and how to defeat them. The final boss battle I want to look at here is this sort of ballet dancer that takes on different costumes. And the costumes will come in various orders, and you can collect power-ups, which I think are very helpful in defeating this boss. And it's important to collect the right one at the right time to really sort of help yourself with this. In this one, you knock off various parts of the costume, which you do for most of them. But you can see I haven't chosen very wisely with this 3-head thing, especially when I'm trying to knock the feet off, because it doesn't actually come at the right level. But it's pretty cool. After you knock each part of the costume off, you actually have to try to target the heart there to beat the boss. And the boss can't hurt you during this time when he's sort of dancing around like this. But again, very creative boss battle, and a lot of fun to play, a lot of fun to learn. And in general, the game is unique in its approach, I think, to boss battles, which a lot of the Treasure games are. So yeah, it's a great game. And honestly, it only costs a couple of bucks, so I would definitely recommend picking this up if you don't already have it for your Genesis collection. So now that we've taken a quick look at Dynamite Headdy, I want to move on to our other game of the day, and that is McDonald's Treasureland Adventure. Now, generally speaking, there's a myth that the licensed Treasure games are of a much lower quality than their own original titles. And even in a recent article in Retro Gamer magazine, which I love, they continue to disseminate this myth that the licensed titles are not as good. And I'm not really sure why. But I will say that the packaging is objectively awful. I mean, it's just really terrible. If you look on the front, you see Ronald and his friends stealing the jewels from 3 different kingdoms, and that's what you do. You go steal the jewels, and then you fight a boss, and you take their part of the treasure map. So also on the back, there are a couple of things that would normally be red flags to stay away from a game. Things like mounds of exciting rounds and 2 games in 1. Really, what they mean there is that there's a Tetris clone that's sort of embedded in the game that you can get to through one of the shops. But regardless, here's the secret. This is a really fun game. I mean, it is a lot of fun. And the unfortunate thing is, even a lot of Treasure fans don't, they know about this game, but they usually, most of them, I don't even know if they've played it. They are spending $150, $200 on a copy of Radiant Silvergun, and here I have a game that costs $5 to $10 and is genuinely a lot of fun. So let's take a closer look at it.
So you'll notice immediately the similarity not only in the stage design, but also in the game's mechanics. Now, you have 2 buttons instead of 1 this time, but one is your magic attack, and the other is your scarf, which you'll see me using to help navigate the levels in a way very similar to Dynamite Headdy. So essentially the control scheme is the same, you just have everything mapped to 2 buttons instead of 1. Ronald's friends all appear in this as well, and they're greedy bastards just like Ronald is, and all of them want jewels, and honestly you should just give it to them because they will help you throughout the game. Now the Hamburglar is the first one that you'll find here, and he gives you a hint for the boss battles, and you'll need to know this. The first time I played this game I actually didn't drop down in there and just spent forever on this boss here, and couldn't figure out what was going wrong, why my attacks weren't really doing anything. And the trick is that you actually have to let the bosses steal jewels from you, which you'll see in just a little bit, and then you're able to attack them while they have the jewels. It's an interesting mechanic, although I will say that they could have varied it just a little bit. Also, the music on this stage is great, and these little caves here I usually take a moment just to enjoy the tunes. I should also mention that throughout the game you collect various items, including bags of gold, flowers, and jewels, which also act as your health meter. And I think that's a pretty cool idea, although it can be a hindrance in certain boss battles. If you get down to 1 jewel, you actually have to let them steal jewels to attack, so you end up dying at the end there. Also, the bags of gold can be used to buy flowers, jewels, continues, and also the balloons, which if you fall will help you up into the level without losing a life. So this can be very useful, and the shops are sprinkled throughout the levels. Also in one of the later levels you can visit a special shop where you play a Tetris clone. This area here in the train level I think is pretty interesting, where you have lights every so often and then your view's obstructed, so it's kind of interesting to try to just keep your eye on everything and all that sort of thing. And then this next section is just really weird. I don't know if this is a reference to something or just some very strange thing. But still pretty fun, but very, very weird. In addition to the train level, you've got this one here where you have all these different sort of moving platforms and that kind of thing. And this is, I think, a pretty cool addition to the game and adds a little variety to the gameplay. Now this next boss battle I'm going to show you in its entirety, and this is one of my few complaints with the game. It's a little too easy, and some of these boss battles can be just really laughable. But I will admit that the game was set on beginner, which is the standard setting. So there are harder levels, so you can set the game for a harder level if you want to do that. You can see here that's where they steal the jewels. And so you let them do that, and then you use your attack, and that's pretty much it. Seriously, Ronald, stop crying. You just stole all the jewels from his kingdom and beat him up. I mean, come on. So here's the sort of pirate ship level, and I really like this one. It starts out as just your standard ship, and you're trying to get to the top of the mast here. And then after that, it actually sinks, and you go in the ship underwater. You can see sort of water effects. Pretty cool. And also, there are various doors inside the ship, and it's sort of maze-like in that way. So you have to sort of kind of wander aimlessly until you find the right path, which I think actually is a lot of fun. Now my first question here is, what in the hell is Grimace doing on a sunken pirate ship? I guess Ronald didn't think of that. This particular boss is a little bit more difficult, but there's a trick. You can kind of stand in the corner like I am here, and you have to wait a little bit longer, but you will eventually defeat him. But if you do want to do it sort of the honorable way, this one can be a little bit more difficult than the other ones. After you get all of the parts of the treasure map, you actually end up in a rocket to the moon. Apparently this is supposed to be the moon here. What's interesting about this stage is, I don't know if you'll notice this, but there's actually a gravity effect. So gravity is less strong than it was on the Earth levels. So when you're jumping around, you do have to take that into account, but it's a lot of fun and adds a unique element to this level. The only complaint that I have, and if you just saw me take hits just now, the main complaint that I have is sometimes it's hard to tell things that will harm you from the backgrounds. So that's my one major complaint, but you know, once you play the stage for a little bit, you'll learn what the hazards look like, and it's not such a big deal. So your final level here is in this sort of alien spaceship, and I will say that this level is very confusing. It's kind of hard to tell where you can go, where you can't go. Everything's sort of designed in a maze-like fashion, but you know, generally it's okay. And you know, I guess that's part of the gameplay of this level, but it is a bit off-putting sometimes how confusing this level can be. The last part of the spaceship level here contains a lot of really tricky platforming and requires you to use your scarf to get to various platforms and that kind of thing. So it can be really tough sometimes, but you know, overall not too bad. Here's a look at the final boss, which is not too bad, but it can be a little difficult. You can see he goes in one door and will come out the same type, and then you can use that to also travel from level to level. And it's a little hard just because you need to be able to have him steal one of your jewels and be able to attack at the same time, so you have to be at the right level to do that. So it's a little tricky, but you know, with some patience you can get through it. So after now beating up on moon people as well, I guess, apparently all that Ronald and his friends wanted was to get back home. So I guess it doesn't the storyline doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But regardless, I think this game is really great. It's a lot of fun, and I would put it up, you know, in the same class as Dynamite Headdy. And I'm not really sure why it is that some people seem to think that this is such an inferior game. I think maybe they just haven't played it. So if you don't have this one, definitely add it to your collection. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.